once, but you never saw him live. He was another player that kind of carried his team on his shoulders at the Knights as well, wasn't he? So very similar, I think, to Thurston in lots of ways.
And his brother for his whole life.
Well, his brother's got a perfectly reasonable TV career now that he's managing to forge for himself.
With jokes about Joey.
Yeah, well, there you go.
You see, yeah, I would talk about Joey, but I think my dad gets the dig in, so I'll wait for that review.
Does he?
Yeah,
he does. Yeah.
Well, you can read your dad's out then, Sarah. Let's move on.
You're just scared of reading them out because you need it translating.
Well, he sent me 3 messages this week about it, so.
Well, I know because it popped up to say it's come through, and I'm like, is he tweeting? I mean, he's not going to message me, but then I never dare go in and read it because I figure, it's really meant for you.
No, it's meant for you too. You can reply.
I nearly did reply and say that he was asking you which position it was. I'd already told him which position it was. Anyway, the old man says, some Aussies from the 80s include Peter Sterling, Wally Lewis and Brent Kenny, all who had short spells over here. More recent, Greg Mackey for FC and Wire. Andrew Johns, who spent an entire playoff game peeping out of Danny Bruff's pocket. More recent visitors from Down Under seem attracted to Cherry and White, Trent Barrett, Piggy Riddell, and the recently acquired, soon-to-be-gone Jackson Hastings. Other Antipodeans, Scott Giroux, Michael Dobson, Blake Austin, Albert Kelly, all merit mentions. British halves from pre-Super League, Murphy Topless, Gregory Millward, Judas Schofield, Goulding as individuals. Top half-back partnerships, Hardesty and Hepworth at Cass, Seaborn and Shoebottom from Leeds. Super League era, you are struggling to better Long and Martin, Maguire and Borough excellent, while Horn and Cook had great potential until he vanished over the river. Individuals of note, Edwards, Max Price, and unrated outside holder 2-time Lance Todd winner, Sneed.
So loads to unpack from your dad there, Sarah. I mean, Sterling, Lewis, Kenny, they're kind of close to like the level of legend, aren't they? That those 3 players, 3 of the best ever. Sterling and Kenny were kind of as a combination were outstanding, as well as playing against each other in that famous '85 final as well. But I didn't see any of those guys play in person. I'm not sure if any of us did. Did you, Sarah?
How old do you think I am?
Well, exactly. I didn't think any of us did. So there you go.
Wally Lewis, the best player Wakefield signed in the last 40 years.
Well, clearly it's Danny Bruff based on what the next signing there. Piggy Riddell wasn't a halfback. He was a hooker. So, but it's funny to mention him anyway. But yeah, what from there did you want to talk about, Sarah, in terms of some of the Hull FC guys he mentioned?
So Mackie was our halfback when we won the 91 Premiership final, along with Patrick Ontat. So I do have memories of him. The Andrew Johns thing is, do you remember, it was like we were talking about last week, when players came over at the end of the NRL season and played a few matches. So Johns did that, and we were away at Warrington in I think it was the last match of the season, and Andrew Johns apparently completely bossed the match. I was on my honeymoon at the time, so I missed it. However, then we played Warrington away in the first round of the playoffs, and Danny Bruff just controlled the game, and Johns didn't have a clue what to do. It was like, that week's practice had just taken the wind out of his sails because Hull knew the only things he had to offer. So we had the song Joey's Going Home, because obviously he was only going to come over for those couple of matches. Who else has he talked about?
What about Sneyd? Like, in terms of the halfbacks you've seen at Hull FC in your time, do you think it is fairly obvious that he is underrated by many people outside of Hull. He did win those 2 Lance Todd trophies largely for his controlled kicking game and that sort of stuff. Do you think he is unfairly looked at from elsewhere?
I think he gets a lot of stick, yeah. I think a lot of his problem is that so often he's playing behind a beaten pack, and a halfback's never going to achieve anything behind that. I know he's had a lot of criticism for his tackling, but actually, if you do look at his tackling more and more now, he is making a lot of decent tackles. I think the Horn-Cook partnership was very good, and it would have been great to have seen where that could have taken, where they could have gone as a pairing, had it not been for errors within the club and Cook choosing to go elsewhere.
One final one that your dad mentioned there that I wanted to get your thoughts on, Sarah, was Gary Schofield. So did you grow up basically just thinking of him as the devil, or did you?
Yeah. He did the dirty on the club either just before or just as I started watching the game, but as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, you don't understand anything. You just know that this person gets booed and yelled Judas at. And then there was the whole thing about him beating his wife when he was coach at Huddersfield, so that was always amusing. Not amusing that he beat his wife, but it was another
stick to beat him with.
Yeah.
Tim, bring you on a player who doesn't have I don't think has any sort of clouds over his reputation at all, and probably a player who's respected on both sides of the city, if begrudgingly from the black and white side, and that's Roger Millward, who obviously has his number retired at Hull KR.
Yes. Yeah, obviously I'm too young to have seen him play, but just the legend and watching the video and just hearing just about his longevity and all he gave to the club, and pretty much fulfilling every role, including groundsman at some point. Just an absolutely fantastic player, and stand-up guy as well, and just you see it in the what happened when he died, and all the the whole club coming together and all the different tributes that were paid to him and the different things that were done, just shows the level he was held in. But another halfback I was going to move on to was someone else who moved from one side of the city to another. That's the original, well, not the original Judas, but the one who, known as Judas himself, Paul Cook. And because I remember that was when I was first getting into rugby league, and that was massive, and that whole thing just dominated the city for weeks, if not months afterwards.
Yeah, it's sort of like, does he really have a strong reputation in either camp as a result of all of that in a weird sort of way? But certainly nailed his colours to the mast with which side of the city he wanted to belong on. Your dad has mentioned a few partnerships as well as the Horn and Cook one, Sarah, and one he mentioned was Hardesty and Hepworth at Cass, and I looked into some of these old names that I knew the names but didn't know too much about the careers, and I'm sure Rob would want to be calling Judas at those guys as well, because it looks like they both went across to Leeds and won a Challenge Cup with Leeds in the 70s. So, I'm not sure if it was the same Hardesty and Hepworth, but I'm fairly sure it was. But yeah, I think some of the other names we'll pick up on again as we go throughout. One of them that your dad mentioned briefly there, Sarah. Tim, you might want to tell us a bit about with what Tom Andrews got in touch on.
Yeah, so Tom Andrews said, got to be Dobbo, the best half we've had since I've been going. He was just whole KR through and through. Phenomenal kicking game, an incredible link-up with Newton and Galea. How many times do we see the short, hard pass to one of those ending in a try? About 76,000 it felt like. And to have another Dobson again, tired face.
That must have been that I've pasted in as words.
Well, I thought it was in reference to the underbite, but maybe not.
Or the hairline.
The hairline, yeah. Or the shirt that was about 2 sizes too small for him.
Yeah, it was.
Because I've got one of his match worn shirts, and it is basically a child's. I think it is even like it's either extra small or it is even like a 14-year-old shirt. It's he's someone who I've got massive time for. He's one of the first names that went down on my list, just for being sort of a lot of the time the only player in the team that was willing to stand up and put himself on the line and do anything really.
He's a player that managed to get a bit of a legend and legacy in Wigan as well from that 2006 campaign when he joined us sort of just over halfway through the season after being on loan at Catalans from, I want to say, Canberra or Cronulla, or he ended up at Canberra. But he came over to Wigan on loan and kind of jump-started that season, and Wigan then went on a famous run to the end of the season that lots of people think we should never have deserved to go on because of salary caps, whatever. But anyway, he was fantastic for Wigan during that run in. I actually watched one of the games from that period over the last week when Dobson was particularly good, and it was a game against Catalans that kind of kick-started that run to safety, the Chris Radlinski return from retirement game. So he has a nice place in Wigan hearts as well, does Michael Dobson. Carsten, do you remember Dobson? Why didn't he make it in the NRL, do you think?
I don't remember him, and that's something of saying it. I've never heard the name before.
Well,
sorry.
No, I mean, that kind of emphasises the point, doesn't it, in a weird way?
Yeah.
He kept trying to go back to the NRL, but he never made it, did he, there? So, fair enough.
I mean, I think there was no doubting he carried that Rovers team for a long time, didn't he? You know, he was Rovers.
Yeah. By a long way.
What about the names that Paul O'Brien threw out? Probably some other names that Carsten doesn't know too much about, and maybe a couple that we don't know tons about either. Tim, sorry.
Yeah, Jonathan Davis. So POB the Viking says Jonathan Davis. Someone I've great affection growing up as a Welsh fan. Tony Myler, Andy Gregory, Bobby Goulding, Sean Edwards, and the list could just go on and on. I mean, that's a classic set right there, isn't it?
I always thought of Davies more as a fullback or a centre, if I'm completely honest. But I know he had a couple of seasons at Widnes where, for them, he played in the halves, even if internationally he didn't play in the halves. But yeah, he's a player that I would have been saving the conversation to be when we talked about centres. But
he played fullback. He played fullback for the Cowboys.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But Gregory, Goulding, and Edwards, they're three names that you just will never stop hearing, I think, for as time goes on. You know, certainly players like Gregory and Goulding did things that, you know, now where we talk about kind of like the systematic robotic players and the get to the kick and play for the percentages and stuff like that. I don't think Andy Gregory and Bobby Goulding had any concept at all what percentages were. That was not in their mindset.
He's definitely not one for moderation in any aspect of his life, I think.
Either of them, Gregory or Goulding.
Yeah.
Anything more on any of those guys from anyone?
No, I mean Sean Edwards was going to be on the list, but then he did a U-turn and we took him off.
Matthew Speakman at Matt Speakman 20 said the best I've seen live for Wigan is Trent Barrett in brackets was robbed. Hastings and Lomax are the best currently in the league. In terms of the other teams in the past, I always worried when Burrow had the ball in his hand, also Chris Sandow for Wire. I just remember thinking he could do something out of nothing. So Matt's 21, isn't he? So probably I'd say Trent Barrett was the second best I've seen live for Wigan regularly, because I kind of wasn't going to games during the Edwards Gregory era of the 90s, but Adrian Lamb, the current coach for me, was the changing halfback for Wigan. Trent Barrett came in and was really good. I don't think he was robbed. I think James Roby was better that year, but Adrian Lamb came in with a kicking game that I'd just not seen because we kind of cobbled our halves together since